Alright guys, welcome to part 2 of my Call of Duty Vanguard review, where I go over everything they did right with the beta, in my opinion. First video, we went over everything that I feel like needs to be changed, and just criticism that I had for the developers. So if you guys are looking for reasons that might be a deal breaker to you, definitely go check that video out. I'll leave it down in the comments and or a title card above. Other than that, let's just get into everything they did right with the Call of Duty Vanguard beta. Alright, so the big thing, big elephant in the room, being on the engine that Modern Warfare 2019 is on, the gunplay is amazing. In fact, there's only one complaint I have with the gunplay that I did not mention in my other video, and that is the sprint out time in general is way too slow. But other than that, just as great as Modern Warfare 2019, the gunplay is. I just did a Yoda. Alright, so the next thing is something that's always going to be a deal breaker for anybody that plays any Call of Duty game, and that is map design. And I'm here to tell you, it's definitely a big step up from Sledgehammer's last game, Call of Duty World War II. In that game, everything besides Gustav Cannon was just 3-lane uninspired trash. But with Vanguard, every map actually feels separate. They feel like they're in their separate regions with their own themes. The maps are a healthy mix between traditional 3-lane maps that we've seen in Black Ops 4, Cold War, World War II, etc., as well as some open maps like Modern Warfare 2019's. But don't worry, the open maps are not overly complicated, they're not incredibly huge, nor are the small maps too linear and restrictive. For example, Eagle's Nest being a small map. Yeah, it's a 3-lane map, but there's several rooms in it. One of the lanes basically turns into 2, making it practically a 4-lane map. So a lot of ways to traverse to Eagle's Nest. Even though it's technically 3-lane, it doesn't really feel like that. It just feels like one big area. Like larger maps like Red Star and Gavuto, like I said, aren't overly complex, but they still give the player a lot of freedom to move around. Now, the only really negatives I have about the maps is, 1, they don't go higher than the second story, at least the ones we have access to. This could change when we get access to all the rest of the maps. 2, yeah, they have their own theme, you can definitely tell them distinctly apart, but there's no real special thing, such as like High Rise. No real like special thing that just seems like they were extremely inspired when they made the map. Speaking of maps though, there are going to be quite a few. I believe they said like 16 or so maps. I could be, don't quote me on that, I could be wrong. But I do know there's going to be a lot more maps than we have seen at launch in Call of Duty since the old days on 360 and PS3. This is obviously due to their development cycle being pushed back to 4 years instead of 3. Either way, it's still a great thing. We're going to have a lot of maps at launch, and I'm excited for that. I'm excited to see what they have in store for us. Speaking of maps though, a few other things I want to mention. Number 1, I have not seen any invisible barriers. If it looks like it's been climbed on, it likely can. If it looks like it could use it as cover, you likely can. Another thing to mention though is the destructible cover is obvious what is destructible, and it does add some dynamic to the gameplay, but honestly, the way they implemented it, it just feels like they put destructible cover in the game to say that they have destructible cover to rival things like Battlefield. It's not too big of a thing, but it's a nice addition, I guess. Speaking of destructible things though, doors are back. They met the middle ground between people who liked doors in Modern Warfare 2019 and people who didn't like them at all. And the way they did this is make the doors themselves destructible as well. So they're basically trying to please both sides of the whole argument there when it comes to doors in Call of Duty. And honestly, I appreciate that, because if I feel like somebody has an S-mine behind the door, like people put claymores behind doors in Modern Warfare 2019, I can just shoot through it and destroy it, you know? Moving on from maps though, this next one is something completely new to the Call of Duty franchise, and that is they have added pacing options. Tactical is the classic 6v6 for people who are just casual, looking for the old Call of Duty experience. Assault is 8v8, and Blitz is 10v10. I do believe no matter which one you play, if it's a larger map, you will still have more players to, you know, compensate for that larger size of the map. I can tell you right now, I'll probably be using Assault and or Blitz for most of my weapons when I go for the Camo Challenge, which, yes, I'm going to try to go for the Ultimate Camo Challenge. It's probably going to be just as hard as Damascus. Speaking of game design though, the design choices they've gone with make it not as campy as Modern Warfare 2019 was, but with the same engine and gunplay that 2019 had. Not to say there won't be campers. There's always going to be campers in Call of Duty. There's always going to be campers in any shooter, so just keep that in mind. All I'm saying is the developers are taking steps to prevent people from being encouraged to be camping. The first of which is making Ghost only work while you're moving. This is how Ghost should work, not Warzone and Modern Warfare 2019's bullshit where you can just sit in a corner and still be hidden off radar. Fuck that shit. Speaking of radar, classic radar has made a return in the form of a perk. What I mean by classic radar is if you shoot with an unsuppressed, or in case this game without solid static ammo, you will appear on the radar. Now, like I said, this is only a perk, so I would prefer it to be default. At least it is an option. Speaking of perks though, let's talk about class customization. Now we have the same thing we've had in the last several Call of Duties, which is the 3 perk, 2 weapon, 1 lethal, 1 tactical setup here. Obviously this is nothing new, but kind of happy it's back. Honestly, I'm happy they didn't go with something like they did with Call of Duty World War II, where you're basically forced to have certain perks depending on which division you chose. Gunsmith has returned as well, meaning a lot of the attachments and the better attachments do have trade-offs. 3rd year in a row we had the Gunsmith, and honestly I hope they keep this for every Call of Duty going forward, because it is just a great system to have. As a result of Sledgehammer having a 4-year development cycle instead of 3 like they were supposed to, we have actually got not only more maps at launch, but we have actually got quite a bit of options for each weapon. If I do remember right, there was like 60 or 70 different attachments for each gun. One thing that is new though in the Gunsmith is not only, as you see here, we have both 2 different perks called Efficiency and Kit, but we also have magazine and ammo types separate in this game, which is something completely new to Call of Duty as well. So this also adds for a great variety. Speaking of ammo types though, as I mentioned earlier, subsonic ammo in Vanguard has replaced the role of keeping you hidden off the minimap that suppressors had in previous Call of Duty games that had the classic radar. Now, it's not to say the suppressors are useless. Obviously they still quiet your gun down. Personally, I think this is a good move for a couple of reasons. First off, you're not forced to take on any negative cons in the Gunsmith if you want to stay hidden off radar that you would before with using a suppressor. For example, if I were to use the suppressor here, it would hurt my ADS speed, but since it doesn't hide you off radar anymore, that's what subsonic does. If we go to subsonic ammo, there's no cons for using it, just the pros. However, there's still a trade-off, which brings me to the second one. Because there are other ammo types in the same attachment slot, it's not likely that everybody will be running the same build in a single match. So some people might have subsonic ammo, other people might have incendiary, hollow point, and so on. Alright, so now I'm going to move to some things that are neutral on for right now, and might pose an issue down the line, but cannot really be determined as of yet. The following things I'm about to get into have been said in my other videos, so if you've already seen that other video, you can click off now. I won't blame you, as I am going to be repeating a few things here. Not everything, just a few things, alright? So since we were just talking about ammo types, there is concern that some of them undoubtedly may end up being overpowered down the line when the full game comes out. For example, explosive rounds. Now, before I got a hold of the beta and I heard there was explosive rounds, I just seen that being overpowered as fuck. Thankfully, however, when I use it on the SCG at least, they're not that much more powerful than regular rounds. If anything, all they did was really increase the flinch of anybody who was getting shot at by these things. In fact, I think the flinch needs to be nerfed a bit if you're being shot at by explosive rounds. I've also gotten to use the incendiary rounds on 2 different weapons, including the revolver shotgun and the line rifle. The revolver shotgun, this thing is supposed to be a 2-shot kill up close. Even with incendiary rounds, when I shot the enemy once and then the fire took its damage, it still was not a one-shot kill. Now, when I tried to use the incendiary rounds on the 3-line rifle, on the rare occasion I did get a hit marker, I had mixed results. There's been a few times where the fire did extra damage and then finished off the kill when I did get a hit marker with it, while other times it wasn't enough to kill them, so I'm not really sure how to go there. But either way, the incendiary rounds are also not overpowered like I expected them to be. If anything, they're a bit underpowered. It could be stronger on other weapons, I'm not really sure, because like I said, these are the only 2 weapons I use them on. As far as all the other ammo types go, I did not really get to use them, unfortunately. All I got to use is, like I said, explosive, incendiary, and subsonic. So I'm not really sure how powerful the rest of them are. I am concerned about hollow point being a bit overpowered, as it does basically add extra damage to limbs, which basically helps people with poor aim. We'll just have to see how all of this plays out, and especially how ammo types combined with other attachments. Another thing that may pose some concern, and something I'm not really sure about, honestly, is the fact that every primary gun has 10 attachment slots by default. Now, I'm all for customization, but this poses 2 concerns that I have about it. My first concern is simply weapon balancing. Who knows how many overpowered combinations will be found by the community down the road with so many attachment slots available. Like I said before, I'm kind of concerned about, say for example, explosive rounds being combined with a high damage barrel. My second concern is this will take away the trade-off that comes with only having a handful of options for attachments that we've had in previous Call of Duties. Having said trade-off not only helps with balancing the meta, but it also encourages players to mess around with different builds. Now, the last part could also go the other way. With having 10 attachments, maybe people will be more likely to make different builds because of that. Either way, this is a new Call of Duty to have this many attachments, and honestly, I kind of like it. Even though it's not historically accurate to have everybody having all this on their gun. It does make for a lot of gameplay possibilities. One other thing I want to mention here is something I'm not really sure that was intended by the developers, but the S-44 is in the tactical slot in the last slot here, meaning you can have technically 2 lethals if you run that instead of any other tacticals. I'm kind of indifferent to this, honestly. Some people might have a problem with it, I really don't. Anyways guys, that is all I really had to say. It's positive and everything I felt they did right with the Call of Duty Vanguard beta. I really think, despite it being a normal War II shooter, that it is a promising year. I did hear the story mode is basically going after Hitler's successor, so that's going to be... I'm looking forward to that one, but other than that, if you guys did enjoy and or agree with anything I said in the video, leave a like down below. If you didn't, drop a dislike. Let me know in the comments what you guys' favorite parts of the beta was, if you got to play it. Let me know if you're ever going to get this Call of Duty this year. Other than that, check out my other video, everything that needs to be improved with the beta. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you guys have a metal day. Another concern, and something I'm not really sure how to feel about, is the fact that by default, we have 10 attachment slats.
To speak proper English, you must learn.